My name is Lydia F. Burling. I'm 30 years old and I build my life around structure. I work as a financial analyst for a regional logistics company in Ohio. I budget. I plan. I don't commit to things I can't afford. Stability matters to me because I grew up without much of it. My boyfriend Alyssa is 26. We were together for 3.5 years. For the last 2 of those, he was in college finishing his degree in communications after switching majors twice. We lived together in my apartment, and I covered almost everything while he focused on school. When we first talked about him going back full-time, it was his idea. He said he wanted to finally take things seriously and build a real career. I told him I'd support that if he was committed. He promised he was. At the time, it felt like investing in our future, not just his. Tuition was about $18,000 a year. Books, fees, parking passes, random campus expenses added more. He worked part-time his first semester, then said it was affecting his grades. I suggested he cut back, not quit. He quit anyway. Said he needed to immerse himself. So I picked up the difference. I paid tuition directly to the university each semester. I covered rent, utilities, groceries, his car payment when he fell behind, and his health insurance after he aged out of his parents' plan. I didn't complain. I made spreadsheets. I adjusted my savings goals. I told myself this was temporary. Over time, though, the tone shifted. Gratitude turned into entitlement. If I hesitated about a spring break trip with his friends, I was unsupportive. If I asked him to stick to a budget for clothes, I was controlling. He started using phrases like, "You wouldn't understand because you're already established." I let a lot slide because I was focused on the long game. Degree finished, better job, 2 incomes, partnership. But by his final year, he barely mentioned us when he talked about his future. It was always my career, my network, my opportunities. I noticed. I said nothing. I was watching. About a year into covering everything, I started tracking it differently. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just clearly. Every tuition payment, every insurance premium, every rent check where he contributed 0, every emergency transfer when his account dipped below 0. I labeled the spreadsheet educational and living advances in my personal records. Not because I planned to use it, because clarity prevents confusion. Graduation came last month. I helped pay for the party too. Venue deposit, catering, decorations. His parents covered some, but they made it clear they were stretched thin. I didn't argue. I wrote the checks. That night, surrounded by his friends and family, he asked for everyone's attention. I honestly thought he was going to thank me. Instead, he smiled, raised his glass, and said he had an announcement. He tapped his glass twice and laughed like this was another charming moment in a night built around him. I was standing near the back, holding a drink I hadn't touched. He said he was proud of himself for pushing through the hard years. He thanked his professors, he thanked his friends, he thanked his parents. Then he looked directly at me. For half a second, I thought this was the part where he acknowledged what the last 3 years actually cost. Instead, he smiled in that tight, performative way he used when he wanted an audience reaction. He said he had learned something important in college. That growth sometimes means outgrowing people. That comfort can become limitation. That safety can feel like a cage. There were a few confused laughs. Then he said it clearly. I'm breaking up with her. She's been holding me back. You could feel the air shift. A couple of his friends gasped like it was some bold, empowering mic drop. His mom looked stunned. His dad stared at me instead of him. Alyssa kept going. He said he needed to step into his full potential. That he couldn't stay with someone who saw life as spreadsheets and risk management. That he had sacrificed enough of his 20s. Sacrificed. That word landed harder than anything else. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. I didn't give him the reaction he clearly expected. No raised voice. No dramatic exit. I just stood there and let him finish. Then I smiled. Not sarcastic, not angry, just calm. Because I had prepared for this months ago. When Alyssa finished his speech, the room didn't know how to react. A few of his friends clapped hesitantly, unsure whether they had just witnessed empowerment or cruelty. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. I set my drink down and walked toward him. He looked confident, almost smug, like he had just delivered a breakthrough TED Talk about self-growth. I stopped in front of him and said, "Congratulations on graduating." Then I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket and pulled out a thin, manila envelope. I handed it to him. For a split second, I think he assumed it was something sentimental. Maybe a letter. Maybe a final apology. Something that would reinforce the narrative he had just built in front of 40 people. He even smiled slightly when he took it. I figured we should settle things cleanly, I said evenly. since you want a fresh start. He laughed lightly. You don't need to make a scene, Lydia. I'm not. He opened the envelope right there in front of everyone. Inside was a printed, itemized breakdown. 3.5 years. Tuition payments listed by semester with dates and confirmation numbers. Rent totals broken down by month. Utilities, insurance, car payments I covered, credit card balances I paid off when he overdrafted, even the graduation party expenses from the week before. At the top of the first page, in plain font, it read, Educational and Living Advances. At the bottom was the total, $112,000. Below that, a simple line stating repayment terms, structured as a private loan at a modest fixed interest rate, matching what I could have earned conservatively in the market over that same period. I had included a proposed monthly payment schedule starting 60 days from that night. No insults, no dramatic language, just math. The color drained from his face as he flipped through the pages. He skimmed once, then again more carefully. His hands started shaking slightly, though he tried to hide it. One of his friends leaned over and asked what it was. Alyssa said nothing. So I spoke. Since you feel held back, I said calmly to the room, it makes sense to separate our finances formally. I'm proud you completed your degree. I trust you'll honor the investment made in your education. His father stepped closer. Is this a joke? No, I replied. I have records for every transaction. Bank statements, digital backups. Alyssa finally looked up at me. You can't be serious. You said you wanted to help. I did, I said. Help is not the same as permanent sponsorship. Someone near the bar muttered something about this being petty. I ignored it. Because standing next to Alyssa, with his hand casually resting on the back of his chair, was a man I had noticed earlier that night. Tall, confident, dressed like he already assumed he belonged there. Ryan. I had seen him twice before the party. Once when Alyssa said he was staying late for a group project. He had come home dressed better than usual for studying. The second time was when he started guarding his phone and smiling at it the way he used to smile at me. I never confronted him. I don't confront without information. Now Ryan was standing close enough to read the total over Alyssa's shoulder. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Then he looked at Alyssa, not confused. Calculating. Alyssa tried to hand the envelope back to me, like it burned him. I didn't take it. Keep it, I said. I have copies. His voice shifted from confident to sharp. You can't just decide this is a loan after the fact. I didn't decide it after the fact, I replied. I decided it when I realized our definitions of partnership were drifting. I simply never announced it because I was still willing to see how things played out. Ryan spoke up then. What kind of woman invoices her boyfriend for support? I looked directly at him. The kind who doesn't subsidize someone else's new chapter. He didn't respond. Alyssa flipped back to the last page and saw the interest calculation. It wasn't predatory. It was conservative, lower than most private student loans. This is insane, he whispered. What would have been insane, I said evenly, is pretending $112,000 doesn't exist. The room was no longer awkward. It was heavy. Then he said something revealing. You wouldn't actually take me to court. That would ruin my career before it even starts. I smiled again. I don't need court to collect. That's when Ryan subtly stepped back. He wasn't touching the chair anymore. Alyssa tried to regain control of the room. He laughed, but it sounded brittle. This proves my point, he said loudly. This is exactly the kind of transactional thinking I meant when I said she held me back. I didn't argue philosophy. For 3 years, I said calmly, you introduced me as your partner. Your parents thanked me privately for helping you stay in school. You told me we were building something together. If you now want to redefine that as your independent journey, that's fine. Independent journeys finance themselves. His father asked why I would embarrass him like this. I didn't start the public announcement tonight, I replied. That landed. His mother stepped closer, asking if we could talk privately. I agreed. I wasn't interested in spectacle. We stepped into the hallway near the coat rack. Ryan stayed behind, but I could feel his eyes on us. In the hallway, the party noise dulled into background static. Alyssa's father closed the door halfway, like this was suddenly a negotiation instead of a confrontation. Do you truly expect him to pay that amount? He asked carefully. Yes, I said. Alyssa's composure cracked. You planned this, he accused. You've been waiting for a chance to humiliate me. Planning is not revenge, I replied calmly. It's preparation. His mother asked what exactly he would be signing if he agreed. It's not a confession, I explained. It's an acknowledgement of documented financial support structured as a private loan with agreed repayment terms. Clear, adult, civil. Alyssa shook his head. Couples help each other without keeping score. I agree, I said. Couples also don't publicly announce breakups framed as liberation from their sponsor. That shut him up. I handed him a pen. If you believe I've been holding you back, I said evenly, sign the acknowledgement page and we can both move forward cleanly. He stared at the pen like it was radioactive. What happens if I refuse? He asked. Then I send a formal demand letter within 30 days. After that, I pursue collection legally. Calmly, methodically. Ryan walked into the hallway then, clearly uncomfortable. This is extreme, he said. No, I answered. Extreme was declaring financial independence in front of 40 guests while still benefiting from private support. There was silence. Finally, Alyssa said he needed time. I nodded. You have 60 days before the first payment would be due under the proposed schedule. Then I stepped back into the party. Conversation stopped when I passed. I grabbed my coat, congratulated him again on graduating, and left without looking back. Not because I was angry, because I was done negotiating reality. The next morning, he called 8 times before noon. I let it go to voicemail. Then came texts asking if we could talk. We met 2 days later at a coffee shop near campus. Neutral ground, public enough for safety, quiet enough for clarity. He looked tired, not devastated, just rattled. You blindsided me, he said immediately. I thought you supported me out of love. I did, I replied, until love became unilateral. He leaned forward. I never asked you to pay for everything. That's not accurate. I pulled out printed screenshots, text threads, dates highlighted. I can't do this without you. We're a team, right? This is for our future. He went quiet. I was building us, I said calmly. You were building you. He shifted tactics. This is about control. You hate that I want more. No, I said. I hate public humiliation disguised as empowerment. He asked if I truly intended to follow through legally. Yes, it will ruin me financially. I structured the repayment so it won't, I said. It's manageable on a starting salary. He asked what if he simply didn't pay. Then it stops being private. That answer lingered. Finally, he asked the question that mattered. Is this revenge? No, I said. It's alignment. We are no longer aligned. 3 weeks later, he emailed me. Not called, not texted. Emailed. Attached was a scanned acknowledgement page with his signature at the bottom. No apology, just a short message saying he disagreed with my framing, but wanted to avoid escalation. I replied with confirmation and the finalized repayment schedule. First payment due in 30 days. I had a promissory note drafted through a local attorney. Standard language, clear terms, late fees defined, interest fixed, payment portal link included. Clean documentation. He hesitated 2 more days before signing that too. Word spread quietly through our mutual circle. Not because I told anyone, because he did. One of his friends messaged me accusing me of extortion. I didn't defend myself. I forwarded the message to my attorney and archived it. The first payment arrived on time. Direct transfer, no note attached. The second payment was 3 days late. I applied the late fee exactly as outlined. No commentary. That's when he called again. You're being rigid over a small delay, he snapped. Predictability is not rigidity, I replied. It's consistency. He accused me of enjoying this. I don't enjoy collecting money from someone I once planned a future with, I said calmly, but I don't subsidize disrespect. There was a long silence. Then he said something that confirmed everything. Ryan's uncomfortable with this arrangement. It's creating stress between us. Financial stress, accountability stress, reality stress. Financial obligations don't dissolve because a new relationship begins, I said. Another silence. By month 4, payments became automated. By month 6, the calls stopped. Ryan stopped showing up too, from what I heard. I never asked for details. Every month, like clockwork, the transfer notification arrived. And every time it did, I was reminded of something simple. Support is a gift when there is mutual respect. When there isn't, it becomes structure. By the 7th month, the routine felt mechanical. Payment, confirmation, archive. No messages attached anymore. No late-night arguments. No emotional speeches about freedom or growth. Just numbers moving from one account to another. That was the thing about structure. It removes drama. Around month 8, he emailed asking if we could restructure the timeline. He said rent had increased. Said he underestimated how tight things would feel living alone. Said entry-level salaries don't stretch as far as projections. I read the email twice before responding. The payment amount was calculated based on the conservative starting salary he originally expected. He had negotiated higher than that, according to LinkedIn, which he proudly updated weekly. I replied factually. The repayment schedule remains unchanged. No commentary. He didn't respond to that email. A few weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that he and Ryan were fighting frequently. Money, stress, tension. Apparently, Ryan wasn't comfortable dating someone carrying a six-figure obligation tied to a former partner. There's something clarifying about real numbers. They remove fantasy. Around month 9, they broke up. I didn't ask for confirmation. I didn't need it. When financial accountability enters the room, superficial alliances tend to exit quietly. The payments continued. Steady, predictable. By the 1-year mark, he had paid down a noticeable portion of the principal. Not dramatic, just consistent. Most early payments went toward interest. That's how amortization works. One evening, he sent a longer message. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. He said he never thought support would come with terms, that he believed love meant unconditional backing, that he felt blindsided by how quickly affection converted into documentation. I sat with that message before replying. Then I told him something I hadn't said before. Unconditional support exists inside alignment. Once someone publicly redefines the relationship as restrictive, the conditions change automatically. I also told him this. If he had ended things privately and respectfully, we probably would have negotiated differently. Maybe reduced the total, maybe structured it more gently. But once he framed me as a limitation in front of a room full of people I had helped host, the dynamic shifted permanently. He didn't respond. After that, everything returned to silence. Transfers, receipts, archive. Then, 18 months after graduation, something unexpected happened. He requested a meeting. Not to argue. To settle. We met at the same coffee shop as before. He looked different. Not physically, in posture, less performative, more grounded. He placed a folder on the table and slid it toward me. Inside was a cashier's check covering the remaining principal, plus accrued interest to date. Exact. Down to the dollar. I took a higher-paying role in another city, he said quietly. Moved in with roommates, cut expenses, saved aggressively. I wanted it finished. I checked the amount against my amortization schedule. It matched perfectly. He said his parents helped with a small portion at the end. I expected that. They had always been quietly aware of the financial reality. I had come prepared. From my bag, I removed a notarized release of obligation document prepared in advance. Signed, final, clean. I slid it across the table. He studied it for a moment before placing it in his bag. Then he asked the one question I knew would come. Did you ever actually love me, or was I just a bad investment? I didn't rush my answer. I loved who I thought we were building toward, I said. But love without mutual accountability becomes dependency. He nodded slowly. No apology came. I didn't expect one. He said he regretted how he handled graduation night. That ego and applause guided his mouth. That it cost him more than money. I didn't argue. Regret is a private lesson. We stood up. No handshake, no hug, just understanding. As I walked to my car, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel bitter. I felt settled. The money was back in my account by end of day. I invested it the same way I would have 18 months earlier. Slow, predictable, compounding. Sometimes people call what I did cold. I call it consistent. Support is powerful, but it's never free when respect disappears. And that's the part he finally understood.